Today on the Rewinder Reviews, we're talking about Ebirah, the horror from the deep. Hello Rewinders and welcome to Retro Rewind Podcast. I'm Dallas and I am so glad to be with you guys today. Thank you for hitting the play button on this video. If you're new to Retro Rewind Podcast, we take movies and we review them as classic, nostalgic, or tragic. And this is one of our Rewinder reviews where I'm taking a look at some movies that are in my backlog and I'm going to give you guys a quick review. And hopefully our dear Captain Francisco and the XO Paul J. Powers like it. If not, I don't care. I'm just kidding, Francisco. As I said in my intro, we're going to be talking about Ebirah, the horror of the deep, the 1966 film that is part of the Godzilla franchise from the Showa era. If you're unfamiliar with the film, let me read from you guys the IMDb description, which says this. A teen searching for his brother stows away on a criminal boat that shipwrecks on Lechi Island, where terrorists have enslaved the infant island natives. Discovering Godzilla asleep, they decide to awaken him to liberate the natives. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I just said that I need to make sure you guys understand. First off, this is a Godzilla film. Infant Island is the island where Mothra resides. And these terrorists, well, they're terrorists, called the Red Baboon. It was really weird. I'm not really sure who decides on terroristic names. As far as picking one, I feel like that was a terrible name from the pick. Maybe they should go back to committee, rethink some things, but that was a terrible, terrible idea. This film was interesting because it takes a different turn. It's a new life brought into it, as it was done by a guy named Fukuda, who was the director. Now, Fukuda, interesting enough, didn't actually like doing this. He didn't like any of the Godzilla films that he actually directed for whatever reason. He did Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, he did Godzilla vs. Megalon, and several others. He actually is quoted as saying that he felt like that the movies were, the monsters were too much of a star and the human story, the human plot line wasn't enough. And so he hated directing this film as a whole, but people really enjoyed this. In fact, interesting story, people would tell him they loved his movies and he would actually get in fights with them about it for whatever reason. It wasn't until later in life that he grew to appreciate people writing into him, say, hey, I enjoyed the films that you did. But he took a different feel to it altogether throughout the this film, and actually the following ones also. So one of the things I liked about the film was the different direction he took with it. This was more of a spy type of film, whereas in the past it was you had your traditional monster film, and then what I really liked, again, if you guys saw the previous one that review I did of Invasion of the Astro Monster, which was more of a space sci-fi film, this was more of a spy film. So I appreciated that he's taking the monster genre and he's doing something new with it. It's something a little bit different than what you saw in the past. So I appreciate the art that went into that. My tragic maker for the film, however, is the fact that as you watch it, Godzilla's presence seems different. It seems odd. Like, it doesn't make sense. Even the inclusion of Mothra seems a little bit different. Like, you're like, okay, how did this all come together? And this is the reasoning why. I've discovered this and just kind of researching it. This was supposed to be a Godzilla film originally. Originally, this was actually supposed to be a King Kong film. Hence the reason why you have Godzilla being woken up by lightning. Which, I mean, you make it work, but it just didn't seem right. Something didn't feel right about the way they did it. And there's even a scene where Godzilla is like real protective of one of the characters, a female character. Again, really out of touch with who Godzilla was. It created an interesting change, I think, in the culture of Godzilla films and the way they play out later. But it felt out of place. And again, it's because it's supposed to be a King Kong film. And so as you're watching it, it's unnerving. It's uneasy to watch. Before I give you guys my final rating on the film, I do want to give you guys a question of the week. If you watch this film, they actually recycled quite a bit of artifacts from previous movies. The Godzilla suit that you saw in this was the one that was recycled from Invasion of the Astro Monster. In fact, if you watch the film, you see the suit kind of degrade because it's old. And so submerging it underwater, all kinds of stuff, it was actually starting to get really kind of nasty. Mothra was recycled from Godzilla vs. Mothra. The giant condor was actually a recycled costume of Rodan, which is why it kind of looked weird also. So my question, my question for you guys, what films out there that you've seen that you know that they recycle something from the past that you love? Like, what are those little nods that you enjoy them recycling? So my final review, my final rating of Ebirah, the horror of the deep, is this. It's nostalgic. It's a nostalgic film. While I appreciated the change in tone with it being more of a spy film rather than what it was in the past, it just didn't capture me as much as Invasion of the Astro Monster. I can see why Fukuda was kind of frustrated that the human plot line was kind of lost in his films. I can see you kind of see a shifting taking place in it. Again, it's not his fault. He didn't write it. He just directed the film. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't hit all the cylinders for me like Invasion of the Astro Monster was. It wasn't bad. It was a good film. If you're like, hey, I just want to watch all the Godzilla films, it's definitely one to watch. It was enjoyable to a degree, but it's not one that I'm just like, you've got to watch this film. It just wasn't a thing for me. So that's my review. If you've seen it, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Was it a classic, nostalgic, or a tragic film for you? Also, I encourage you guys to check out Retro Rewind Podcast on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Facebook. Francisco streams 2 or 3 times a week where he does, whether he's doing a recording of a podcast, he's playing some nostalgic games, or maybe he's doing an art stream. He's doing some really amazing stuff. Also, I encourage you guys to check out the actual podcast, Retro Rewind Podcast, and all your favorite podcast catchers. And if you want more of me, Dallas from Geek Devotions, check out my website, geekdevotions.com, where we take geek pop culture items like movies, video games, comic books, and a little bit of Godzilla, and we use them to let people know they're loved. So, all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, have a great week. Remember, be kind, rewind.